UFC 329, Conor McGregor vs. Max Holloway. Max Max Holloway wins by first round KO. Conor McGregor breaks his leg. Paddy subs Benoit in the first. Paddy destroys Benoit. Bautista upsets Corey Sandhagen. Brandon Royval beats Kavanaugh. And man, to start, guys, you got Conor McGregor. Man, this was the most anticlimactic fight I've ever seen in my life, man. This was absolutely embarrassing by Conor McGregor, man. Conor McGregor pulled up with that hairdo, he thought he had so much aura, but this was the most amount of aura lost in a fight ever, man. He came out, he threw a flying kick, like something you throw in UFC 5, high IQ play, alpha torn AC, broken foot, I guess he wanted to prove to himself that, he could still use that foot, like Chris Weidman was saying, but yeah, man, this was absolutely embarrassing, man. So this is very disappointing, but I think Conor McGregor's done, man. I don't think he should ever come back. I don't ever want to see him come back, bro. He looked like dog shit in the cage. You know, this was the easiest money anyone has ever made in a fight, man. I think I could, if I was Max Holloway, I think I would have beat McGregor still, man. If you put me in the cage with Conor McGregor, I think I would have won, man. I'm not even kidding, bro. This was the easiest money ever made for Max Holloway, bro. Honestly, bro, Max Holloway didn't even need a training camp, man. Max Holloway did not need a training camp for this fight, man. This win was handed to him on a silver platter, bro. This was the easiest money ever made. He's probably made like 5 million off this fight at least, bro. The McGregor pay-per-view points, but man, But that being said, I hope Max Holloway, if McGregor, isn't too hurt. McGregor was literally walking out the cage. He was literally walking out the arena. Bro, you're literally walking. At least, like, be in a wheelchair. Like, at least show the struggle, I kind of felt this coming, man. I didn't think this was going to be an actual fight, man. I kind of felt this with McGregor's antics over the last fucking 3 years. He's always been canceling his fights, But anyways, I hope they either rebook this fight or Max Holloway fights like a Paddy Pimblett. That would be a good fight. Maybe Arman Sarukin for a number one contenders fight. Or maybe just a rematch with Justin Gaethje. Here he beat the champion. But on to the next. Yeah, Benoit versus Paddy Pimblett, guys. This fight made me sad. This fight did make me sad, man. Benoit's my favorite fighter, man. I knew this was gonna happen, guys. I predicted it, man. I literally predicted it right now. I'm 2-0 right now on this card. For the main co-main, I got both of them right. I predicted it to a T. I said, this was the worst matchup for Benoit St. Denis. Paddy Pimblett's jiu-jitsu is too good. I said it was gonna be a late. I think I said it. Late third round submission or 29-28. But yeah, man, Paddy got the sub, man. I told you guys, man, this was the worst possible matchup for Benoit in this division, man. Paddy's too weird on the feet. He's too good on the ground. He's too awkward. He has good wrestling, bro. I told you guys. Benoit's my favorite fighter, man. But I kind of knew it was coming, man. I've analyzed Benoit's entire game, man. I know his game to a T. I know all of his movements, all of his patterns, man. And I knew Paddy was gonna win, man. It makes me sad saying this, man, because Benoit's my favorite fighter. He's the most entertaining fighter in the UFC, man. He's either die or kill or be killed, man. But I think Benoit, it was just a bad matchup, bro. I think he could beat, maybe put him with like a Bobby Green, man. Benoit versus Bobby Green, that would be a good fight. But I don't know, man. I think he has to, add some more tools to his arsenal. He only has a couple tools to his arsenal right now. He has that fucking left kick that just spams in that shitty boxing. He does this, but he has good elbows. He has good pocket. He likes to maraud people, which is why I love him, bro. He just holds people against the cage. He tries to cage work on them, tries to get takedowns, but Paddy was too skilled. He was too crafty in there. He had the little Darce choke up his sleeve. I think Benoit didn't respect Paddy at all, honestly, man. He really came out guns blazing, but, man, it was a bad matchup in this division, man. I think Benoit should get, you know, I think Benoit, man, he's a good fighter, man. Just some guys in the division are a little tricky for him, man. I think he still can get to the top of the division, man. I think, a fight against Mateus Gamrot would make sense for Benoit, but yeah, I think Benoit versus Mateus Gamrot, and then Paddy Pimblett, impressive performance, but I called it, man. It was a too good of a matchup. I think he should fight. Ilya Topuria, man. I think Paddy Pimblett versus Ilya Topuria is the fight to make, man. I think that'll be a good fight, man. Ilya Topuria is coming off a loss to Justin Gaethje, a KO loss or a TKO. He quit on the stool, and Paddy Pimblett, whatever you say, man, he went to decision with Justin Gaethje, man. I think, honestly, Paddy Pimblett could pose a threat to Ilya Topuria, man. He's too weird on the feet, man. He's a little too big for Ilya Topuria, man. He's a really short guy, no reach, man. I could see Paddy Pimblett, making Ilya eat one of his knees, those uppercuts, but yeah. So I think you should do Benoit versus Mateusz Gamrot and Paddy Pimblett versus Ilya Topuria. Next fight, we got Corey Sandhagen versus Mario Bautista. Man, this was surprising, man. So what happened in this fight, man? It was a tit tat battle on the feet. Sandhagen, he was doing Sandhagen things. He was outstriking Mario Bautista, by a couple strikes. Exactly like I said. He for every one shot Mario Bautista landed, Corey Sandhagen landed two, but then at the end of the third round, I think Mario Bautista got a takedown and Corey Sandhagen got a takedown, and then Mario Bautista went into a knee bar and absolutely blew Corey Sandhagen's knee out, and he kind of cooked him the rest of the fight, man. Corey Sandhagen couldn't use his movements, man, like he usually does. The lateral movements. He was beating Mario Bautista up on the feet before that, man. But then shout out to Mario Bautista, man. He broke Sandhagen's knee. He outcrafted him. It was just a good play. Corey has a really good movement on the feet. Very good footwork, but Mario Bautista, man, good IQ. Then second round it was close. Mario Bautista didn't really go too much on him. I think Corey Sandhagen honestly could have won that round, man. I gave round one to Mario Bautista because he did a lot of damage with that knee bar, and then second round I gave it to Corey. I thought he outlanded Mario Bautista, but then in the third round, Mario Bautista dropped Corey Sandhagen. Absolutely beat Sandhagen up. Sandhagen, wasn't really landing too much this round. He couldn't move. And Mario Bautista ended up beating him. I can't believe I just said that, man. I really thought Corey Sandhagen was gonna win this one. By his usual tactics. But I'm glad Mario Bautista won, man. Corey Sandhagen's kind of a guy he's not a champion, but he's like at that 5 range. He's a gatekeeper. Corey Sandhagen's one of the best gatekeepers in the UFC. And Mario Bautista just beat him. So he's now in the top 5. I think Mario Bautista should fight someone like a Song Yadong next. I think that'll be a really good fight, or Davison Figueiredo. I think that'll be a good fight. Corey Sandhagen, man, I don't really know what to do with Corey Sandhagen, man. I think maybe you give him an up and coming prospect like a David Martinez. I think that's a good fight for Corey Sandhagen to bounce back. I think he's on a 2-fight losing streak right now, but yeah, man. So Mario Bautista wins by 29-28. It was a close fight, but next fight we got Brandon Royval versus Loner Kavanaugh. This was an amazing fight, like usual, man. Brandon Royval, the Loner Kavanaugh. These flyweights have really good fights. But man, it was a close fight. To start the first 2 rounds, it was either way, man. It was a really good fight. Brandon Royval was sticking to his boxing. So was Loner Kavanaugh. Both hurt each other during this fight. But yeah, man. At the end, third round, Brandon Royval hits Loner Kavanaugh with a really good shot. He stuns Loner Kavanaugh, and then Brandon Royval was trying to get the finish, and then Loner Kavanaugh actually hurts Brandon Royval back. But Brandon Royval, toughs it out, and he takes Loner Kavanaugh down, and he submits him, and Brandon Royval wins by round 3 submission, and I think it was a really good win for Brandon Royval. Kavanaugh just beat Moreno. He was in the top 5. Royval got another top 5 win. He's shown to be the best outside of the champion Van Pantoja. He's beaten everyone else. He beat Tyra. He's beaten he did not beat Manel. He's beaten everyone besides Manel, Pantoja, and Van. So I think man, there's not a lot of opponents. Royval did make a good call out with Asu. That was a good call out. He called out a tricky customer. I think that's a good fight. Then for Loner Kavanaugh, I think he should fight down in the rankings, man. He's been getting a lot of fights up in the rankings. I think he should fight Tim Elliott. Try to bounce back against an old vet, a little trickster. And yeah, next fight we got Bobby Green versus Terrence Mckinney. Guys, this was another flawless prediction, man. flawless prediction, man. This was absolutely flawless by me, guys. Absolutely flawless, bro. As like I said, man, Terrence McKinney was gonna press Bobby Green moving forward. You know, he's gonna win the first round. He's gonna hurt Bobby Green, but then Bobby Green's gonna tough it out, and he's gonna wear on McKinney, and he's gonna knock him out at the end of the first round or second round. Like I said, man, you know, Bobby Green. Yeah, it was looking bad for Bobby Green. You know, he's looking sloppy. You know, McKinney was looking really big in there. McKinney definitely had a big size advantage, but McKinney just was not able to. You know, McKinney gassed out after taking Bobby Green down, and like Bobby Green said, man, you can knock him out brutally. You can submit him, you can break his arm, but you cannot kill Bobby Green, man. And Bobby Green came back, you know, hit him with some good body shots, man. And then Terrence McKinney ended up quitting against the cage in the last 3 seconds. You know, that's pretty embarrassing, honestly. I don't know why he couldn't just wait a few more seconds, you know, try to tough it out. But Bobby Green with the first round KO, literally the last second, exactly like how he predicted it. 4-1 on the main card, you know, pretty good predictions. You know, MMA Guru did pretty, I think, worse than me. I think he went like 2-3 or something. But yeah. The next fight, we got Robert Whittaker versus Nikita Krylov. I predicted this too, man. Another flawless prediction by me, man. Robert Whittaker absolutely just outclassed Nikita Krylov. You know, he's sticking to the jab, the 1-2s, the 1-2 high kicks. You know, this was an amazing performance by Robert Whittaker. You know, like I said, man, Robert was too fast. He was too crafty on the feet, man. Nikita's, you know, has that light heavyweight skill. Going against these big, heavy blobs, like a Mirzakhanov, a Ozdemir, these guys aren't as fast as Whittaker, man. Whittaker is really fast for this division. I think he can do good in this division, man. Whittaker completely outclassed Nikita Krylov, ends up knocking him out, making Nikita quit. I don't know why he quit. I think the commentary was saying he broke his jaw, but I don't know. I think he just gave up. I think Robert Whittaker, some good fights in the division. A lot of middleweights have been moving up recently, but I think Robert Whittaker should fight the loser of Duplessis and Usman, and I think Usman's gonna lose that fight. So I think he should fight Usman after. That'll be a good fight. Nikita Krylov, I think you should give him Mirzakhanov. They both lost to these middleweights. I think that's a good fight for them. Next fight we got Gable Stevenson versus absolute nobody. This was to be expected by Gable Stevenson. Absolutely destroys Elijah Ellison. Gable Stevenson, was on the feet. He did not respect Ellison at all. Gets the KO punch. He hurts Ellison, and he just starts clobbering him. Ends up getting the finish. Not too much to break down here, but I think Gable Stevenson should fight someone like a Shamil Gaziev, man. We should test him with the waters against Shamil Gaziev, bro. I think Shamil Gaziev could really pose a tough threat to Gable Stevenson, man. Shamil Gaziev has really good takedown defense, man. I think he might be able to take down Gable too, man. That'll be a really tough fight for Gable Stevenson, man. Shamil Gaziev's a crafty on the feet. He has good power. Let's see. Gable Stevenson has only fought cans so far. I think Shamil Gaziev will be a really good test for Gable Stevenson. On to the next, we got Cody Garbrandt versus Adrian Yanez. This was a bad prediction by me. Adrian Yanez absolutely destroys Cody Garbrandt in the first 2 minutes with the right hand over the top. He hurts Cody Garbrandt, ends up putting him away in the first round. In his boxing, I should have predicted it, man. I don't know what I was thinking, bro. I thought Cody Garbrandt, coming off some momentum, he got a win. This was a boxing matchup. Thought he could do it, but yeah, and they're picking Cody Garbrandt again. Yanez, with basically a 2-fight winning streak, he did beat Ricky Simone, but Yanez had a good fight. He's got some good boxing. I think he should fight someone in the rankings like a Bryce Mitchell or something like that, man. Garbrandt, he should fight Dominic Cruz. I think maybe for one last fight between the old heads. The guys on the both are crippled. I think that's a good fight for him. A good retirement fight. Actually, no, Dominic Cruz retired. I think Garbrandt should retire him too. A good bare knuckle. Next fight we got Cody Durden versus Costa. Typical Durden Costa fight. Costa was able to win. Nothing much to break down here. Cody Durden, ugliest dude in the UFC, loses again. Cody Durden has some good fights in the UFC, but America wasn't on his side this time, man. Next fight we got Tracy Cortez versus Wang Kong. Wang Kong won by dominating decision. Guys, I actually predicted it, man. I was gonna pick Tracy Cortez, but man, I realized, man, Wayne Kong is so much better. She's not a Instagram influencer. One other thing, man, Wayne Kong has like real muscle. Tracy Cortez has like that gym girl muscle. Those like legs, those big thighs. She's really a gym girl, but Wayne Kong has that Dagestan strong tomboy muscle. It was a really easy fight to pick. I was gonna pick Tracy Cortez, man, but thankfully I picked it to Wong Kong. Wong Kong, absolutely illegally kneed her in the face. It was pretty blatant. But outside of that, Wayne Kong's pretty good on the feet. Beats Tracy Cortez pretty handedly. It was a good performance. I think Wayne Kong should get. I think you should just give her the title shot, man. I do not care at all, man. She's beaten Valentina Shevchenko before. I do not care about any other women's fighter in that division. So Wayne Kong versus Shevchenko, book it. Tracy Cortez, I think she should have a fight. With Instagram, bro. She should just go back to Instagram. She needs to fight those dumbbells. Alright, next fight, we got Kai Kamaka versus Luke Riley. It was an absolutely amazing performance by Luke Riley. Luke Riley ends up knocking Kai Kamaka out, with some good punches. It was a really early stoppage, but, who cares? He was going to win anyway. So Luke Riley's a really good prospect in that division. I think Luke Riley can go far. He trains with Paddy Pimblett. The two England dudes won. I think Luke Riley should step up, maybe like a Rainy Barcelos or like a Nurmagomedov, the Saeed Nurmagomedov. I think he should fight him. Kai Kamaka should fight probably like a Dana White Contender Series guy, prove himself again. But anyways, guys, that's the video. UFC 329, pretty good card, The main event really took it down, but it was a pretty good card. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe, comment what you guys' thoughts on the card was. Thank you.